Every great story starts with a great idea. The story of the Oxford Trust is no exception. It started as an idea to encourage, support and unite the science base in Oxfordshire and to breathe life into the teaching of science subjects. It started life with Audrey and Martin Wood, two people who were passionate about science, about making a difference, and who both understood the challenges of starting and running a business. Audrey and Martin set up Oxford Instruments, the University of Oxford's first spin-out company, in 1959 to produce superconducting magnets. Oxford Instruments went on to become a huge commercial success, and in 1983 it floated on the stock market. Their experience of creating and growing a spin-out company enabled Audrey and Martin to appreciate the challenges that faced any young entrepreneur at that time.
The science and innovation environment in the 1980s, it was virgin territory, really. I caricatured the whole thing at the time as being rather like a feudal network. There's a lot of science, a lot of research going on, but it was going on behind barriers, high wire fences, both physical and metaphorical.
Suitable premises for potential spin-out companies in Oxford were in short supply, and there was no support available to help them forge a path in industry. The Woods wanted to help, to support these young entrepreneurs and their new innovation businesses.
It has a lot to do with the relationship of the university and industry, and by forming the trust, which was halfway perhaps to it, you could say, to industry, it was acceptable by industry, acceptable by the university, and became an objective that a lot of people had but didn't know quite what the format should be for doing the work involved.
They could also be the conduit for building bridges between industry and academia.
We had for some time been thinking that it would be nice to increase the capacity for small companies to be able to start up in the Oxford area. And we were then suddenly faced with the possibility of buying the old packing shed from Oxford Instruments on Oseney Mead. And we decided we'd do this, so we had to start thinking really hard about exactly what we wanted to do. We had already had something of a little science nursery, because Oxford Instruments left Middleway, which was a stables and slaughterhouse up in Summertown, in 1965. And as we knew of another company that wanted to come in, we kept on the rather vague lease from the butcher and actually there'd been about 4 companies through by then, who'd grown to a reasonable size and moved out to other premises. So we really wanted to multiply that up.
So the Woods set about creating a charitable trust, the Oxford Trust, with the mission to encourage the pursuit and application of science.
And this was to be called the STEP Centre eventually, Science and Technology Enterprise Project, with some words that Audrey found for it. But it was an interesting time. I mean, you know, literally a packing crate was my desk, and another packing crate was a seat, and I had a pencil and a piece of paper.
As a school governor, Audrey had also spotted another challenge facing the scientific landscape. There was a distinct lack of good quality, enthused science teachers in schools, and the number of students studying science was declining.
I think the staff that was coming forward, if we had wanted to interview for a staff position in the school, we'd find it very difficult. The quality was rather poor, and we'd find they really weren't up to the job. And fewer and fewer children wanted to study science, so we really felt it most important to try and catch them younger and get children enthused in science and technology.
So Audrey and Martin had established the Trust's 2 initial aims: to support and encourage science and innovation, and to enthuse young people about science and the opportunities that it could provide.
The STEP Centre was really ideal for us because what we were looking for is somewhere where We could have a small location, low cost and sort of really flexible terms. But we also wanted other businesses to be there in a sort of similar situation to us, starting up early stage, so we could share ideas with them and sort of network with them a bit. And the Step Centre was ideal for that.
Paul and his small team at the Trust set about finding and talking to everyone they could within the science environment at that time. Building the networks, making connections and initiating partnerships. The Trust created new and valuable opportunities to bring people together.
Networking was a very important aspect of everything that we did. We ran an innovation club, for instance. Every Thursday evening, we would have a barrel of beer in this big room we had at the Step Centre. And people would come along who were perhaps thinking about business or perhaps had already started their business. And in a relaxed environment, meeting and learning from others.
The Trust also started to build links with secondary schools. Gillian Pearson, who would later become CEO, joined as Assistant Director for Education in 1988. She was tasked with fulfilling the Trust's second objective of engaging young people with science, advising on how secondary schools and industry could work better together. How could working scientists and engineers inspire young people in secondary schools to take up a career in science?
I think where the Trust was particularly special was that it was helping businesses and was known for someone who knew about business and was helping businesses. We would help start-up businesses in a very practical way with space and with support through workshops. But we also then helped other businesses by bringing people together, by bringing new ideas together, by working with them on raising funding. And business people then respected the Trust. So when we then go to them with ideas about schools projects, then they're already effectively on side with us. They know that we are in it to help business as well as to help the schools.
Primary schools also benefited from a more hands-on approach. In 1990, the Oxford Trust opened Curiosity at the old fire station in Oxford.
There was a great need to help to support primary school science. And so what we thought we would do initially in that was to set up a little hands-on science centre.
And through this hands-on interaction between primary school children and science, evolved the Oxford Trust's third aim, to communicate with the public about science.
Whilst the main aim of Curiosity was to support primary school science, it also was always in our minds at the beginning that this was a resource that would make a fabulous visitor attraction for families. So weekends and school holidays, then Curiosity was marketed to 5 to 11-year-olds still, but this time with their parents.
Mike Dennis was Curiosity's manager.
After I'd been at Curiosity for a while, we started looking at outreach, and the first outreach that we did was a show called the Science and Magic Show. And the Science and Magic Show very quickly became very popular in schools. The whole idea behind it was it was a series of apparently magic tricks, but the nice thing about them was they all had a science explanation.
As the 80s became the 90s, the Trust's reputation as an independent and supporting voice of science and enterprise grew. The Step Centre evolved into the significantly larger Oxford Centre for Innovation. The education programme was expanding, and a burgeoning public programme of events and activities was underway. By the Trust's 15th anniversary in 2000, the organisation was thriving. 124 young companies had passed through the doors of the Innovation Centre. In 2003, Gillian Pearson, now Chief Executive, created Science Oxford, the public-facing part of the Trust, and in 2005 opened a new Science Oxford Centre on St Clement's. While the Science Centre drew in a broad range of audiences, from local businesses to those interested in talks and lectures, it also provided a base for the hard-working schools team, who were out visiting schools and research institutes across the county. Amid the wide range of successes that the Trust has enjoyed, there may still be one or two regrets about projects that never quite made it to fruition.
Well, I've been chair with three directors, chief executives, Gillian Pearson, Ian Griffin and Steve Burgess now. Ian joined us in 2008 and came with this wonderful vision and inspiration of a public science centre on this site, which would draw the public in, this site being Macclesfield House, right in the middle of Oxford, next to the Castle Mound, wonderful location. I think, in retrospect, that was always ambitious, both in terms of the size of the site and the funding that would be needed, and actually the audience in a relatively small town for a public centre with opposing attractions in London and Bristol. But I do regret us not being able to carry through the Magnet project. I think Ian had tremendous vision. It was a really good idea. And I'm not without hope that in one way or another we will at some point in the future do that again. I think our decision to pull out of it was absolutely right at the time. It was just too difficult.
But such regrets have not held the Trust back. As the organisation now begins its fourth decade, the three aims of Audrey and Martin's original mission are as strong and true as they were in 1985.
One of the reasons I've been here for such a long time is because I am still personally very motivated by the mission of the Oxford Trust and by the vision of Martin and Audrey. And I feel that in many ways, they were ahead of their time, and it is, in some ways, it's only now that other people are beginning to catch up.
The Oxford Trust is unique, in my opinion, because of its independence. We're not part of the university, we're not government funded, we're not part of industry. We're a separate organisation with our own identity, our own source of funds, and so we can act in the best interest of the local community without needing to report back to any particular funding body. That also makes us very responsive. It means we can change direction and respond to changing technologies, changing needs in the community, and so we can put new programs and new actions into place very quickly, very responsively, and that's a unique aspect of what we do.
But the one thing that the Oxford Trust has always been very clever at is not only bringing people together and coming up with new ideas, but recognising that when other people are doing things, great, move on, innovate, do something new.
And the Oxford Innovation Engine report was a really good example of a really good initiative to do something about that. The report has become a sort of Bible that people keep on their shelves, and it's had real impact. It's quoted in all sorts of places.
The innovation and enterprise landscape of Oxfordshire has changed beyond all recognition. Now there are multiple science parks, catalysts and catapults, hubs and incubators. But the Oxford Trust still has a vital role to play as the facilitator of networks. It remains an independent but informed voice, the creator of and investor in new ideas.
A crucial role to play there because it can be a neutral convener. I think we can talk to all the different people in the ecosystem, and we're not really competing with any of them. We can support all of them to achieve their own objectives and partner with them in order to make the whole ecosystem work a lot better.
Thanks to the generosity and foresight of Audrey and Martin, the Oxford Trust is still supporting young spin-out companies via its innovation centres in the region.
Over the last 30 years, we've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of small companies to get going. And all right, some have fallen by the wayside, but a number of them have gone to national and international positions, FTSEs, all the rest of it, and we can be very proud that we started those off in Oxford in a very small way.
And through a vibrant schools programme, the Trust is finding new ways to develop the relationship between industry and young people. It is working to inspire students about science and scientific careers, and working with teachers to give them the skills and confidence to create engaging and enriching science lessons.
Working with businesses and being at the interface with young people and businesses has always been a challenge, but I feel like the climate is more positive now. Other people have woken up and realised how important it is to encourage young people into science careers. Other people have realised what Martin and Audrey realised so many years ago.
The public engagement programme also goes from strength to strength, reaching out to new audiences. And the Trust is still using its investments to be responsive to change and supporting innovative projects, such as the Trust's latest ventures, Hack Lab, the Oxfordshire Science Festival, So Talented and Venture Fest.
One example of this is one of the Trust's current projects, the Hack Lab, where we're thinking of transforming the basement of the Oxford Centre for Innovation into a fabrication lab, so a make space, almost like sort of a super garage, if you like, where we're bringing in things like laser printers, the 3D printing, sort of industrial sewing machine, laser cutters, all sorts of different equipment that people wouldn't normally have access to. And I think projects like that are really important for the Trust, and something like that particularly because Sir Martin and Lady Audrey Wood obviously started up Oxford Instruments in very much the same way, and so sort of supporting other people to do that.
On the education field, I'm really excited about the project that we've been running with Oxford Brookes University called Thinking, Talking, Doing Science, and we hope that will show the significant impact of our work within the primary school sector.
The Trust has a group of new and experienced trustees who are helping to shape the charity for the next 30 years of activity in a constantly evolving scientific landscape. Over the past 30 years, the Oxford Trust has reached out to engage with over 200,000 adults and families through its programme of live events, engaged with over 500,000 schoolchildren, and worked with around 20,000 teachers to bring the excitement of science into classrooms, and enabled hundreds of new businesses to find their feet in the commercial world.
The main thing that excites me about the future of the Trust is how we're going to be able to take all the amazing programmes we've now set up in education and harness the energy and enthusiasm that we're developing in primary and secondary school children and encourage them to take that forward into apprenticeships and entrepreneurships and to working in the business community.
The future of the Oxford Trust is very good. We have lots of programmes that we have in the pipeline, but in the end you can't do everything on your own. And certainly looking ahead for the next 30 years, partnerships will be the way to go. We work with numerous organisations already, but we will continue to strengthen that both in the local area, regionally and nationally. Both supporting other organisations' initiatives and developing, of course, our own that others can get involved in. It's the only way that we can maximise the impact on our audiences, on industry, and in the community.
I hope that the Trust will continue to use its independence as a sort of honest broker. This wonderful ability that the Woods have created in endowing this Trust to do things that nobody else is doing, to look for the gaps, or to look ahead, to be innovative. Why not?